Newly released video captured by U.S. Navy pilots offers an inside look at a secretive government program that investigated unidentified flying objects. The Defense Department says it ended the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program in 2012 over funding issues. But a Pentagon spokeswoman said, quote, "The DoD takes seriously all threats and takes action whenever credible information is developed." Tony Dokoupil shows us 2 UFO encounters captured on camera. Tony, good morning.
Good morning. Wait till you see this video. That little-known Pentagon program had a budget of about $22 million, according to the civilian intelligence officer who used to run it. Most of the sightings looked at were by U.S. military personnel who have been reporting UFO sightings for decades.
So look at this thing. It's rotating.
This is one of the incidents the Pentagon's secretive group of UFO hunters investigated.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
This object appeared off the California coast in 2004 and baffled 2 Navy pilots.
It's not a drone. It's not something that we can easily say, oh, that's an airplane.
Luis Elizondo ran the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program at the Defense Department. He believes the way that school bus-sized object moved defied the known laws of physics.
What we are looking at is truly beyond next-generation technologies.
Former Nevada Senator Harry Reid championed the UFO program, and some of the funding reportedly went to one of his donors, Robert Bigelow, founder of the military contractor Bigelow Aerospace. The Las Vegas tycoon spoke with 60 Minutes in May.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
Where exactly?
It's just like right under people's noses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I'm human. What are you?
Unlike in the movies, most UFOs don't turn out to be alien spacecraft. This green fireball above Buenos Aires in 2015 was likely a meteor, while this strange light over Los Angeles was actually a missile test.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control.
Elizondo refused to tell us how many cases his former group investigated, saying that information was sensitive. From 1947 to 1969, an Air Force program called Project Blue Book looked into more than 12,000 UFO sightings, and about 700 of them remain unidentified.
Interesting how they buried this in the budget under this sort of blurry name, Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program.
They call it black money for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen one, but I believe when I was a little kid, there was a movie where it shows aliens giving you a needle in the back of your neck and it changed your personality. Yeah. It terrified me for years, still terrifies me, so I believe in that.
I do too.
I know, stranger things have happened.
Stranger things.
Yeah.
Big smile from Tony Dokoupil this morning. Thank you, Tony.
We are back with that newly revealed UFO program at the Pentagon. The government has spent millions of dollars investigating UFOs like this one right there. It was spotted by Navy pilots. And Nick Watt has a closer look at the program.
Look at that thing, dude.
Just one of many alleged sightings investigated by the secret $22 million UFO unit run from the Pentagon.
Look at this thing. It's rotating.
A real-life X-Files.
I've seen things that I cannot deny.
Here's another, what pilots describe as a 40-foot-long tic-tac, 100 miles off the California coast.
I have never seen anything in my life that had the performance, the acceleration. Keep in mind, this thing had no wings.
Commander David Fravor was piloting an FA-18 on a training mission that day in 2004.
And it's moving around left, right, forward, back. The radar immediately starts getting jammed. All of a sudden, it takes off.
No aircraft that we know of can fly at those speeds, maneuver like that, and looks like that.
I think it was not from this world. I just know it was really impressive, really fast, and I would like to fly it.
The Pentagon telling ABC News the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program ended in the 2012 timeframe. It was determined there were other higher priority issues that merited funding.
So we always joke, maybe it was trying to communicate with something under the water You know, I've seen Star Trek with the whales. I don't know if it was alien life, but I will say that in an infinite universe with multiple galaxies that we know of, that if we're the only planet with life, it's a pretty lonely universe.
Now, there are often rational explanations, but Commander Fravor hasn't heard one yet for his sighting. And George and Paula, according to sources quoted in the New York Times, the military still listens to soldiers and sailors and airmen, still investigates what might be out there.
I don't know, that visual, I'm not positive that it's not the Millennium Falcon I saw. Star Wars yesterday, the story broke yesterday, and it kind of looks like it rotating there in the sky, Nick, so that's my little theory.
And a Navy pilot sees an unidentified flying object. Why he insists it is, quote, not from this world. Let's go out front. Close encounter with a possible UFO. The Navy pilot who had one says this mysterious craft outran his F-18 supersonic jet. He'll be my guest. Out front tonight, a stunning claim from the man who ran the Defense Department's multi-million-dollar UFO program, a top-secret operation that was, for years, dedicated to, yes, investigating UFO sightings. Aaron spoke to him, and when asked, does he believe there is alien life out there, this was his response.
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Now, this video you are seeing here is presented as possible evidence. It was captured by a U.S. Navy fighter jet in 2004 off the coast of California. If you look closely, it appears to show a whitish oval object about the size of a commercial airplane hovering over the ocean. What is it exactly? Out front now, the man who witnessed this object. He's a retired U.S. Navy pilot, Commander David Fravor. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Commander, you were in the cockpit there. Explain to us exactly what you saw.
Yeah, when there was two of us, two airplanes, four people. We had F-18Fs. We had got vectored out to the west after they terminated a training exercise to investigate an object. When we arrived, the cruiser with the Aegis system told us it was merge plot, which means they couldn't break us out from the blip. We started looking around, and as we both looked out the right side of our airplane, we saw a disturbance in the water, i.e. like a seamount where the waves are breaking over the top, so white water, and a white object, oblong, pointing north, moving erratically left, right, north, south, up, down, all around. As we started a clockwise flow around the disturbance, watching it, I decided that I would go lower and the other jet stayed high to observe both of us. As I got to about the 12 o'clock position, the object started to mirror us, so now we're both in a clockwise flow, opposite circles. The object is lower than me, I'm above him, and I'm looking at him with my eyes. We get all the way around the circle as I'm descending, so now there's probably about maybe a 2,000 to 3,000 foot difference between us in vertical. And I'm at about the 8 o'clock position, and the tic-tac is at about 2. I cut across the circle, so across the middle, and as I got close to it, probably within a mile to a half mile, it rapidly accelerated to the south and disappeared in less than 2 seconds. So then we turned back around. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, I guess you're an experienced pilot. You've been up in the air a lot. I imagine you've seen a lot of things in the sky. What was it about the movement of this or the appearance of this that made you believe it wasn't from this world as opposed to something else?
Well, the first thing is it had no wings, so you think, okay, it's a helicopter. Well, there's no rotor wash in the water. There's no rotors. And when helicopters move side to side, they kind of slow and then they pick up speed going the other way. This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. It would hit and go the other way and change directions at will. And then the ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
Now listen, I'm sure you've spoken to people, you told the story to some people who react with skepticism, shake their heads a bit. Yes. What do you say to people who doubt the account?
Well, I think it's easy to doubt what we can't explain, but when you actually see things, and this is not the first account of someone seeing a UFO, but in this situation, you're talking about 4 people, all eyeballs on, ranging in experience from relatively new in a fleet squadron, which is VFA 41, to myself, who had over 16 years of flying and well over 3,500 hours. nonstop. So I would argue that it wasn't a weather balloon, it wasn't a flare, it was an actual object that we tracked, we looked at for somewhere around 5 minutes before it rapidly accelerated.
Now, the Defense Department analyzed this video. Did they take it seriously? Did they come to any conclusion?
Well, you can't really discern what it is until there's a couple of shots. When it gets close, there's a couple of objects coming out of the bottom. But you can estimate on how fast it leaves the side of that screen and the width, and you know, you'd have to ask exactly based on the field of view what they would estimate that is. But when it leaves the screen on the video, it's moving pretty fast.
Commander Fravor,
and that's from a standstill.
A remarkable account. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Well, you're quite welcome. Thank you.
The truth is out there. This video from the Department of Defense has a lot of people rethinking UFOs and asking, what if we're not alone? So this is a sign of the times we live in. With all the news about the Russia investigation, the GOP tax cut, this incredible story nearly got overlooked. We're learning about a Pentagon program to research UFOs. The official who led the effort telling CNN there's very compelling evidence that we may not be alone. Let's discuss now. Investigative journalist Leslie Keeney, author of UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. Great to see you again.
Great to be with you,
We did a show
Don.
5 years ago. You reminded me on UFOs,
cool?
right?
I know,
On HL Joy
I
Behar
was
show.
so happy to be coming back on with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, and let me ask you about this because you helped break this story for the New York Times. It's about Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And let's put the video up. This video is of a U.S. military jets encountering an unknown object. It was released by this program. What do you make of this video? What's happening here?
Well, what's really fascinating about the video is that the object that's caught in the scope in the center has been hovering for quite a few minutes. And then all of a sudden at the end, which is what we're seeing on the screen now, it zooms off to the left very fast. This is a fair distance away, so it's going fast. And, you know, we don't have technology that can hover in one spot and then suddenly go off at a right angle, especially something without any wings or propellers or anything like that.
All right, so this is not, you know, we don't want to do the Twilight Zone, that sort of, but what, that's what people think about. What is that? What is it? What could that object be? Where could it be from?
That's what they're trying to figure out, actually, on this official Pentagon program. I mean, it's not so much that they can figure out where they're from, but they're trying to figure out how they behave, what are the consistent characteristics that repeat themselves, how can we explain what they're doing, what they do. The questions about, you know, the bigger questions, we don't have data to answer those questions.
So are we talking, you know, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I know you hate going there. Little green men?
We're not talking little green men. We're talking about just physical objects in the sky that have certain capabilities that we can't explain. Very advanced. They call it beyond next generation technology.
All right.
That's the way the program describes it.
So Jim Sciutto, who's my colleague, just spoke to a retired U.S. Navy pilot. He witnessed this, and he asked him what made him think this object was from another world. Watch this.
Well, the first thing is it had no wings, so you think, okay, it's a helicopter. Well, there's no rotor wash in the water. There's no rotors. And when helicopters move side to side, they kind of slow, and then they pick up speed going the other way. This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. It would hit and go the other way and change directions at will. And then the ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
An experienced pilot who said he had never seen anything like that in his life before that could move like that. I think that's pretty significant. So,
yeah, I sat down with him and interviewed him at length.
Okay. So then if you say, no, let's not talk little green men, are we talking otherworldly? Or maybe is it a spy craft or something from another country that maybe they have something that's more advanced than we are?
Well, I mean, the officials who have studied this believe that it is not technology possessed by any country. I mean, they have made that statement on the record that they've observed enough of it, and they have colleagues in other countries, that they've drawn that conclusion because it is so advanced, what they have observed. And also, these things have been around for a long time, Don. So go back to the 50s and 60s when they were doing the same thing they're doing now. What kind of technology did we have then? Nothing close to what we have now. So it's a mystery that needs further funding, further investigation. Governments need to take it seriously. And by the way, governments in other countries do take it a lot more seriously than we do. So we kind of need to catch up.
I need to tell our viewers that this program officially ended in 2012, but Luis Elizondo, who's a former Pentagon military intelligence officer, he was part of the program, and the government fund ended in 2012. You reported that the same backers claim that the program is still operating. So what can you tell us about the status of this program?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was before 2012, they had enough of a budget. There was $22 million allocated so they could hire these contractors to work for them. And they were able to accomplish a lot because they had a budget to hire contractors. But when the funding dried up, the officials inside the program continued to do what they were doing, which was to continue to investigate cases that were brought to them. So as far as they're concerned, the program continued. And there are many people that have reported that to us, you know, people that are on the record. We've seen documents also that show that that's the case, that it has continued.
You're an investigative journalist. You investigate this stuff. Do you think there's life out there? And has it come to this planet? Well,
I think that a lot of people would believe that there's life out there. Whether it's come to this planet, that's another question. And I don't know for sure. I think it's a valid hypothesis for what we're observing. But as a journalist, you know, I'm not going to speculate about things that I can't prove, so I don't know. That's my honest answer. It would be
myopic to think that we're the only ones, I think.
Well, I don't think anybody believes that. But the question is, if we're not, they're so far away that how could they ever get here? That's the big mystery.
Well, we got, you know, to Mars.
We have maybe civilizations that are way ahead of us in terms of years and years, millions of years or whatever. So, but you know, what we need to do right now is examine what we have in front of us and stop running away from it.
Fascinating. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The Pentagon's secret UFO program revealed. The military spending millions of dollars to look into UFO sightings and videos from American fighter pilots all being made public and raising a lot of questions.
Dude, that is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
Purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those gaps with what we think is logical. And there's still, by the way, a lot we really don't know. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
We need wiretaps, surveillance vans, a satellite team in Bogota. Yes, I love this new energy. The entire CIA is at your disposal.
Does that include the Starbucks in the lobby?
Looking out into the vastness of the universe, the great
greatest mystery is right here, right under our feet. The ultimate aim of all science, to penetrate the unknown. These are the stories that will make you say, what the fuck?
Commander David Fravor still can't explain what he says he saw that day. November 2004, the Navy fighter pilot was on a training mission west of San Diego when he was ordered to check out something in the water not far away. On a clear day, over a smooth ocean, he saw the object, waves breaking over it, and says he saw something hovering above it.
It's randomly moving north, south, east, west, just random, just stopping, going the other direction, like you could do with a helicopter, but a little bit more abrupt. It looks like a 40-foot-long tic-tac with no wings.
Fravor says he and his four-man team tracked the object for several minutes until it just disappeared. Tonight, CNN has learned the Pentagon had a secretive program to research UFOs like the one Fravor spotted. The project was called the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, run by an official named Luis Elizondo.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control.
A defense official tells CNN the program cost at least $22 million over 5 years before it was shut down in 2012. According to the New York Times and Politico, which first reported this story, tens of millions of dollars for the project were pushed through by former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Those publications say a lot of the money for the Pentagon UFO program went to a company called Bigelow Aerospace, run by a longtime friend of Reid's, Robert Bigelow, a big believer in UFOs. Public records show Bigelow contributed about $20,000 to Reid and his Political Action Committee.
That campaign contributor got research contracts from this program. That just is a bad picture. It doesn't look good for anybody. It's hard to imagine that something that came about that way and profited somebody who pushed for the program was a good use of taxpayer money.
A Pentagon spokesman, in fact, told CNN the program was shuttered because there were, quote, other higher priority issues that merited funding.
It's definitely crazy to spend $22 million to research UFOs. Pilots are always going to see things that they can't identify, and we should probably look into them. But to identify them as UFOs, to target UFOs to research, that is not the priority we have as a national security matter right now.
But pilots like Fravor, who says he saw something, see merits in the program.
What if it is real? Because I think it's real because I saw it. And what if there's more of these? And what if we do nothing?
Now, just a short time ago, Senator Reid responded to CNN saying he's, quote, proud of this program and its groundbreaking studies. Speak for themselves, he says. Reid says it's silly and counterproductive to politicize the serious questions raised by the work of the UFO program. The head of that aerospace firm, Robert Bigelow, did not respond to CNN's multiple requests for comment by our deadline. Wolf?
Brian, there's also information that former Senator Reid tried to keep information about this entire program out of public view.
That's right, Wolf. The New York Times says Reid acknowledged to them that he and two other senators, Ted Stevens and Daniel Inouye, both deceased, did not want public debate on the Senate floor over this program. Reid told the Times that the funding for the project was so-called black money, meaning that was secret money for classified programs. They just didn't want it talked about.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like this thing, it's rotating.
These haunting images, part of a bombshell first admission by the military of a government program investigating sightings of UFOs.
There's like this thing. It's rotating.
This mysterious black object spotted off the coast of San Diego by Navy fighter pilots in 2004.
My gosh.
That encounter documented by ATIP, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, a shadowy office in the Pentagon that ran from 2007 to 2012. According to the New York Times, it examined so-called anomalous aerial vehicles. The Pentagon confirming to ABC News the initiative ended in favor of other higher priority issues that merited funding. Former Democratic Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who according to the New York Times helped secure the $22 million initiative, defending the spending, tweeting, "This is about science and national security. If America doesn't take the lead in answering these questions, others will."
Something like this was a pet project by Senator Reid and some of his colleagues, something that they thought needed to be investigated, but the real question is, was it worth $22 million for 2 or 3 fascinating videos?
The new revelations raising questions about how the government should handle suspicious objects in the sky.
Though the funding for the program ended in 2012, the former director of ATIP telling me tonight that up until 2 months ago when he left, the program still existed. And Tom, he said they were still documenting sightings.
Still documenting sightings.
Lindsay, Roger is an alien. Roger! She was all over me and my wig fell off and we'd be in big trouble.
The Pentagon has been keeping track, or trying to, of the type of aircraft that don't take off and land from conventional airports. We're talking about unidentified flying objects, UFOs.
We're not to be disturbed. Unless you see something funny on YouTube.
You can laugh about it if you want, but a lot of people are taking this revelation very seriously. Correspondent Garrett Tenney is here with more on this program. Good evening, Garrett.
Well, Brett, good evening to you. We may not know if aliens exist, but it turns out our government had a special team of UFO hunters that was trying to find out. The Pentagon now confirms the existence of a secretive UFO program tasked with investigating reports of unidentified flying objects. The Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program was created in 2007 at the urging of then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. And over the next 5 years, the program received more than $20 million for its work, which included analyzing a variety of aeronautic threats ranging from what could be our adversaries' next generation aircraft to reports from military pilots of encounters with unknown objects like this one in 2004 that appear to defy the laws of physics.
Look at that thing, dude. Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Now, the Pentagon tells us the program ended in 2012 when officials determined there were other higher priority issues. But the program's former director, who resigned in October, says it was only the funding that ended and that over the last 5 years, the program has continued investigating incidents alongside their new responsibilities. This weekend, Harry Reid said he has no regrets about the program he championed, tweeting in part, "This is about science and national security. If America doesn't take the lead in answering these questions, others will." And this isn't the first time the Pentagon's investigated UFOs. Between 1947 and 1969, the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book investigated more than 12,000 UFO sightings. And while most of those ended up having reasonable explanations, 700 sightings remain unexplained. Brett?
Cue the X-Files music. Garrett, thank you.
UFO sightings around the world have reached an all-time high. According to data from the National UFO Reporting Center, UFO sightings experienced a boom in the 1980s. Reported sightings went from less than 5,000 in 1980 to about 10,000 in 1990. But between 1990 and 2000, sightings rose by nearly 30,000. In those 10 years, more than 45,000 sightings were recorded, a record. And it appears the spike in UFO sightings was not an anomaly, but a trend. In an 8-year period from 2002 to 2009, more than 36,000 UFOs were reported. Since then, more than 11,000 more UFOs were reported, with more than 47,000 being cataloged since 2010. Statistician and PhD candidate Sam Montfort brought this information to light. With the collection of data from the reporting center, Montfort found that individuals are far more likely to spot a UFO in the US than anywhere else in the world. He reports that on average, there are 2,500 sightings reported per 10 million people. That's 300 times higher than the global median. Northwestern and northeastern states have filed the most reports citing per capita. Perhaps with 7 new known planets in the universe, we could experience even more close encounters in the future.
So, the aliens have come to Earth to destroy all mankind. And, they're going to start at McDonald's. So if you're in line there, you better run. Whoa, whoa, not the workers, though.
John, believe in aliens.
Oh, I can't.
Wait, we're going to read the best one. John said people from space.
Yeah, people from space, Bigfoot in the mountains, Russian collusion. There should be some evidence, just saying. There should be. There's plenty of evidence.
Janice, where do you fall on this subject? Do you believe in aliens?
I believe they're aliens.
I've got to believe there's something bigger out there than just us.
That's what you give me. I think it is arrogant to believe that there's no God and it's all accidental, and therefore there's got to be something else out there.
Right. I mean,
I don't know if it's aliens and
what would it be though?
It's something.
I mean, we've literally had
bigger
presidents who've said it on the. President Truman at a press conference said, "We've seen flying discs. We deal with them all the time."
I 100% believe there are.
Why are you laughing? Are you laughing at presidents?
I could throw some CDs at you and we would see flying discs too. Oh my gosh, do you still have CDs? Somewhere, my mom's house.
Yep. You want to go? You want to get into this?
There's a reason why science fiction movies are so popular.
And why it's called fiction.
No, not necessarily.
Science fiction.
And if you realize, did you see all the leaked emails between Sony when we saw that huge dump of emails from Sony and all of the discussions back and forth with members of the government and so forth? We learned that members of the defense intelligence community were meeting with Sony regularly for hours at a time.
We didn't learn, you learned, because you were the only person that read all those emails.
It would explain a lot if we could blame a lot on aliens, right? If we could just blame all the world's problems on aliens.
Or as President Reagan said, I gotta go. Here's what President Reagan said about that. He said, I talked to Mikhail Gorbachev about this very issue, and wouldn't it be interesting if suddenly we had this disclosure, all of our sort of world problems would vanish. He said that at the UN. Yeah. President Reagan said that twice in public.
Well, it's like Independence Day. We all come together to fight the aliens. That's how you get world peace. I got to go to radio, by the way. I'll see you guys.
Clayton, you need to write a book on presidents and alien behavior.
Here's a question.
I would love to do that.
Here's a question.
Not a bad idea.
If you encountered an alien and it could talk, what would you ask it?
Well, the thing is that what we know from government records and all sorts of high-level members of the military, that there's not actual verbalization. It's.
But what would you want to know?
I would want to know the history of our world. I would want to know
where they live. Please, like, I'm not buying any of this. I'm like, this is. Okay.
She thinks we're alone in the universe. We've been talking about this for years. She thinks this is it. This is it. She thinks that we're alone in the universe.
Or do not.
I didn't say that. I just don't.
Is that E.T.?
Okay, you said there's evidence. I'll have to research that. To be honest with you, it's just never been something that's fascinated me. I like real world problems and issues. That's just never fascinated me. I don't like. Right. I mean, are you hearing Gavin?
He's making fun of me.
Right. Is he making? Are you making fun of Clayton?
He said because Ainsley is friends. Right. I like them like a life.
Do you not find it interesting?
I was too involved in my social scene to worry about what's happening in some planet I've never heard of.
As a kid, I used to love. I had an astronomy magazine as a kid. I used to go out in the neighborhood with my telescope as a little boy, and I'd have my friends. You know, they would come over. We would look at Saturn and stuff. I love that stuff. I love this.
Are you excited about the eclipse coming up?
I am at the end of August.
Oh, it's on.
The best place to see it is
one of the
Tennessee,
most.
right?
It's going to be so. No, there's actually 14 states that you can be in where you're going to see the path of totality.
Totality.
Yeah.
But isn't Nashville like the number one spot?
Yes, Nashville. Yeah, I'm going to Greenville,
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yep, right near Clemson.
And how did you pick that location?
Someone emailed me.
Oh, okay. My mom's from Greenville. I was born.
I'm going to your house actually. Staying with your family.
No one lives in the house anymore. Well, I'm sure a family does. My grandparents don't live there anymore. They passed away.
So is the house still there?
It's my mom's childhood home.
Okay.
We're not from there.
So let me ask you this.
She's still going to knock on the door.
I'm just curious. We'll wrap this up on this question. I'm just curious. So if you have astronauts who have literally been on the moon in the Apollo missions, saying that they're seeing craft landing on these craters, they have audio of them saying this.
Okay.
Buzz Aldrin says there's obelisks on the moon around Mars that we've seen. Obelisks, giant structures.
Okay.
We should go there and explore that. He said that.
Yeah.
Are you not fascinated by the fact that there are buildings
So once they discover them, then y'all tell me, and then I'll listen to the story.
There are radio shows that concentrate on this stuff, like in the old days.
Although Brian Tully, our producer, said all the emails that came through that you guys sent, most of them said they do believe.
Support.
So I started a thing on Twitter, which I wanted to talk to Clayton about it. People are responding like wildfire on Twitter about this. Really? Like, people are so into it. Biblically,
yes.
What does it say? Yes. It's in the Bible.
Yes? Yes.
Hey, happy National
Ezekiel, right?
Ice Cream Sandwich Day.
The wheel within a wheel.
Yeah.
In Ezekiel.
Go out and eat your ice cream.
Look it up, everyone.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Oh my gosh, I guess we're not alone after all.
A stunning new revelation. The Pentagon reportedly set up a secret program 10 years ago looking for UFOs deep in space. And newly released video captured by U.S. Navy pilots offers an inside look at this secretive government program. Take a look.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
My gosh is right. I mean, who would believe? So the thing is, we don't know if this is a UFO. It could be like somebody's aircraft that wasn't reported, but this really gives a lot of credence to people who've been saying, hey, the government was hiding something from us. You're not shaking your head.
No, because we already know there's nothing out there, because a couple of reasons. One, we have had this incredible revolution with digital cameras and smartphones. And we spent all this time looking, as a child, looking at all these grainy photographs that we used to look at as kids in documentaries. Well, we don't get any more of that, and everybody has a phone, and we don't see any more. The reason why there has been no contact is because they do not exist. And they don't exist because we don't exist. When we go out and we look at the lifeless orbs, these planets out there, that's what we look like to them, because this is all a computer simulation that basically was created long ago. Those planets out there are already conquered and simulated, which is why there's only us.
Is he okay?
I just changed my mind. I think Greg is an alien. I think you're the alien.
Well,
I am a shape-shifting lizard.
Okay. Well,
now
anyway,
you're going to encourage people.
I was struck that, in fact, that 10 years, and they put $22 million into this, Dana. So, do you think this is a waste, or does this justify what the government was doing?
In the scheme of things, for as much money as the government spends, I think that this is not money that was poorly spent. You do think that it was Harry Reid, the senator from Nevada, who got this money earmarked into the DIA budget, which is a secret budget for the intelligence agency of the Defense Department. But he had support from Senator Ted Stevens, who said, I think we ought to look into this. So
yeah, why? Because he got hit by a UFO.
No.
It was an unidentified flying object.
Oh, you mean Harry Reid?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So he hurt his eye.
Yes, the exercise equipment.
Wow.
Wow. So
I like that
if you
joke.
listen to an interview this morning with on The Daily, the New York Times podcast, they interview the guy who just recently left his position, Elizondo, I think his name was.
Right.
And he says, like, he's not saying there's for sure something out there, but that it's definitely worth studying.
But, Jesse, there was the video. It's not like we don't know. I mean, now you're looking at something just like the pilot, and you're saying, what is that?
Yeah, I can't identify what that is, Juan. I have no idea. But I've gone to these UFO conventions back in the day and shot Waters Worlds, and people tell me stories about being abducted, and they honestly believe they were abducted and things were done to them while aboard the spacecraft, and a lot of the stories share similar details. So there has to be something going on. I don't think everybody's hallucinating.
No, they are. It's hypnagogic nightmares. Everybody, they're hypnagogic nightmares. When you're sleep paralysis and you think something's on top of you, that's a hypnagogic nightmare.
But I do think spending a lot of money on stuff like this has other benefits.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously when the military-industrial complex spends this amount of money on things, isn't that how they created the internet? Not Al Gore.
Well, that's true.
You never
that's
know
how
what you
they
might
connect.
discover.
That's what you just said is absolutely true. But Kimberly, I'm accustomed to sort of mocking these people as tinfoil hat brigade, I think they call them, or people who are just making, if you ever listen to Art Bell in the middle of the night, on the radio, all these things you think, what? This guy's, but he's entertaining. Now I'm thinking, man, maybe there's something going on.
Well, I mean, look, there's been enough discussion about it that it makes sense they're going to study it or figure it out. Even President Trump said he wants to know about, Area 51 and the secrets of it. It was like a good reason to become president, right? Get all the top secret information, just like with the JFK files. I don't know. I mean, listen, I have an open mind about things. I also enjoy astrology.
Very nice. One more thing is up next.
Pisces.
Ooh.
California sun. I've been on the run just to get a moment.
We've been focused on, and we feel confident in that. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. I actually want to ask about UFOs. Several media reports this week disclosed that. Sorry. It's UFOs.
I was going to say. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I feel like I already want to pass on this question, given that you've got aliens sitting among you.
Several media reports disclosed the existence of a secret Pentagon program that was researching UFOs. Funding ran out for that in 2012. Does the president believe in the existence of UFOs, and would he be interested in restoring funding for that program?
Somehow that question hasn't come up in our back and forth over the last couple days, but I will check into that and be happy to circle back. Jennifer.
Turned down, it's our understanding that they had close ties to the White House. So you're going to try to change the vetting process, and then finally on the one on UFOs.
Let me start and do one at a time because I'm not going to remember all of those questions. If we have to, we'll see if we can get to all of that.
Hey, what's up, guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. So the clips that you just saw came from a White House press briefing earlier today, where Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is the White House press secretary, was asked numerous times from reporters about this recent story, this story that is now blowing up through all of the national media, something that we've been reporting on all month now, which is this recent revelation of the Pentagon's secret UFO hunting program. And if you guys haven't seen that, our last video we posted about this after a new UFO clip was released online by the government that was captured back in 2004 by a couple of jets who were scrambled and were following this unidentified object that seemed to be making moves and maneuvers that pretty much, in their words, defied gravity or defied anything that we've ever seen before. And we posted a video on that a couple of days ago. We also went into the fact that the Pentagon admitted that for 5 years they operated a secret program to investigate unidentified flying objects in our skies. Now, the Pentagon has stated that they closed this program down years ago. However, others who worked inside the Pentagon say that it has continued operating, which is obviously not out of the realm of possibility. How many times in the past have the powers that be claimed that they shut something down and we find out that it ran for years later? For instance, Project MK Ultra, which was the CIA mind control program that went on for years under the noses of the public, and very well may likely be continuing today. And so now that the mainstream news has picked up on this, finally, we'll just say, but when can you depend on the mainstream news to do anything? And as you're seeing here, reporters are asking questions. It's all a big joke. You know, there's no seriousness at all in the demeanor of these reporters as they ask the question. There's no seriousness in Huckabee's voice when she answers these questions, or should I say doesn't answer, more like sidesteps, which is common. It's a common tactic that has been extremely successful and widely used whenever the subject of UFOs or aliens is brought up. Make a mockery of it, make a joke out of it, sidestep the question, and say that you will look into it. And that's exactly what we see happened here. Now, it should also be noted that something strange happened when one of the reporters actually asked, or tried to ask, this question about UFOs. As you guys may have noticed, as The Hill's Jordan Fabian began to say, quote, "I actually want to ask about UFOs," suddenly you'll see that his phone goes off, and you can see sort of this weirded out look on both Sanders as well as the journalist's face as the reporter's Siri function on his phone started malfunctioning as soon as the topic of UFOs came up. So, you know, make of what you will about that. And obviously, immediately after, Sanders joked, saying, quote, "I don't know if that's a coincidence or not." So obviously, this should tell you guys that the media is not serious about this topic. Despite how many articles they publish about this Pentagon stuff, this should show all of you that if you're looking to leave it up to the mainstream media to marshal in disclosure, well, you're going to be in for a long wait. Now, relating to this story, and we spoke about this guy in our recent video, but the gentleman who operated or headed up this secret Pentagon program to hunt UFOs is a guy by the name of Luis Elizondo, and he was the real deal. He's a former Pentagon official. He led the AATIP program, or in other words, the DoD's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And he resigned not that long ago, citing infighting within the program, as well as funding issues. And he has recently come out and stated that, quote, "My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone." And he said this in an interview on CNN's Eric Burnett Out Front.
These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of. I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Alonso resigned from the Department of Defense in October in protest over what he called excessive secrecy surrounding the program and internal opposition to it after funding for the effort ended in 2012. He said Monday that he could not speak on behalf of the government, but he strongly implied that there was evidence that stopped him from ruling out the possibility that alien aircraft visited the Earth. The former Pentagon official stated that they had identified countless anomalous aircraft that were, quote, seemingly defying the laws of aerodynamics. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological. So, in other words, what he's saying here is that they witnessed and studied and captured aircraft that were doing maneuvers that a human person, or any sort of biological entity for that matter, would not be able to handle. Okay, when you're up flying in a jet doing strong maneuvers in corners, you are hit with extreme G-forces, forces of gravity. And according to these reports, these UFOs were exhibiting things that defied these G-forces, that defied gravity itself. And so if humans were not in them, if no biological entity were in them, well, what's in them? Or could there have been biological entities in there, but they were just unaffected? Because, you know, many of these UFOs are said to be in sort of a bubble, a gravity bubble, if you will, so that they can start and stop on a dime and be unaffected by G-forces or gravity from the planet. And so in our last video, we also spoke about Mr. Tom DeLonge, who has sort of jumped on the bandwagon, speaking about this release from the Pentagon about this secret program, also talking about this new piece of UFO footage. And the jury is still out about Tom DeLonge and whether this whole revelation about this secret Pentagon program, as well as this UFO footage, if it's legitimate or if it's just some sort of disinformation campaign to make us think that they're actually revealing something here, but that they're not. And I haven't been the only outspoken person about this. You know, recently, Dr. Stephen Greer, who we had on the channel, we did an interview with, posted some things on Twitter that kind of give us an idea of how he feels, with one post indicating that the recent New York Times story about this Pentagon revelation was nothing than a clear ramp-up to what he calls fake disclosure that is designed to prepare people for an outer space threat, and so that apparently we are all then frightened of what could be out there. In another post, he spoke about his own film, Unacknowledged, which recently came out, and how it has been blocked by the media with no coverage, despite it being 2017's #1 documentary on iTunes and extremely popular on Netflix. And so obviously, we're kind of getting the idea here that Dr. Greer is not a fan of Mr. DeLonge or what's being said in the mainstream, and that he believes this is a lead-up to some sort of false invasion or space threat. And so I have reached out to Dr. Greer in hopes of getting him back on the channel to do an interview so we can get a more clear take from him on what he feels is going on, his stance on all of this Pentagon stuff, the UFO footage, Mr. DeLonge, everything that's going on, and hopefully he will respond soon and I'll have an update to that. So let me know what you guys think down below. Strange times indeed. Many of you called it when you spoke about how the Pentagon is suddenly releasing UFO footage and admitting to things. It's just not something they do. So I'd love to hear your take on it. Put it down below. Email me if you have any new info or something you'd like me to touch on in a future video. My contact info is down below, and I will see you all back in just a bit. Stay safe, guys.